You hit something that even from my background, I realized certainly the spotlight is on submarines, as well it should be.
Yeah.
In my mind, anything that really injects energy and productivity back into our industrial base for the impacts to GDP, to careers and families and ball games we all just talked about earlier, I'll do that in spades every day.
Yeah.
Are you ready to inspire the next generation of innovators? Apply for a grant to host Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs summer manufacturing camps. NBT will provide your school or organization with financial support, curriculum, and marketing efforts to make your camp a success for local students. Don't miss this chance to make a difference. Apply today and help shape the future of our workforce.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis with the Fabricator Magazine. Special co-host today, Gareth Slager.
Yeah.
He's normally on the other side of the table.
I don't know if I like it up here, Dan.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I feel more comfortable back there with Griffin.
It was good that you stepped up.
Yeah.
You were able to fill the seat.
Right. I know a lot about submarines, so.
There you go. Today's guest is Tim Shinbara, who's Chief Strategy Officer of the BlueForge Alliance, a nonprofit organization that's been charged with helping the U.S. Navy improve its supply chain relationships with American manufacturers.
Yeah, and they've partnered with FMA on manufacturing summer camps with MBT programs. And
so, they have a lot of tentacles, and as the conversation will reveal, there's a lot of stuff to do.
Right. Their partnerships, besides with us, like bigger organizations like Major League Baseball and NASCAR, Brad Keselowski, and
and he's an interesting individual as well because he's done a lot during his career, starting off with the Navy and
Tim, not
doing,
Brad Keselowski, right?
I don't. But Brad seems pretty successful.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But since we're talking about submarines, water, we want to give a shout out to a metal artist who reached out to us.
Yeah, Christina Thompson reached out to us a while ago, and she built this really cool hammerhead shark out of metal called Sledge.
There you go. It looks pretty. I mean, it's pretty realistic.
Yes.
She got a reason why she chose a hammerhead.
You know, she sent us a message. Let me pull
I think
that up.
When it comes to sharks, it'd be one of your less popular. Is there such thing as a popular shark?
I don't know. What's your favorite?
I know. There's a certain candidate for president that didn't like them.
Yeah.
but I don't.
Do you have a favorite type of shark?
Man, let's see. Great whites just seem like they're like in for damage, so it can't be that one. Tiger sharks, bull sharks, they cause a lot of damage, I think.
Right.
Tiger sharks I don't know a lot about.
Great white.
Whale sharks seem very weird. For like in the shark family, it seems like they don't bring the same type of drama.
A little bit more lethargic.
So maybe that's my favorite. The whale shark that doesn't bring the drama.
You like the chill shark.
I like chill sharks.
Yeah.
Anyway, the actual sculpture looks pretty sharp.
But I think she created it to line up with Shark Week, which was, I don't know, like a month ago or something.
Right.
So when she sent us this message, I think that was back in July.
Yeah.
She was trying to align Shark Week with releasing the final version of the Hammerhead Sledge.
Yeah.
So, if you check out her Instagram page, her and her husband, Darren Thompson, operate a shop called Thompson Craft.
Awesome.
Check them out on Instagram. We'll have some clips from this and links to their profile.
And if you are kind of handy with metal and you're doing something you think might be interesting to share, let us know, and we'll pass along the word.
Yeah.
So enjoy this episode. Once again, Tim Shinbara of the BlueForge Alliance.
Discover your path to leadership excellence at the FMA annual meeting, February 25th to the 27th in Chandler, Arizona. This premier event offers a unique opportunity to connect with prominent figures in the fabrication and metals industries, enabling the exchange of ideas, collaborative solutions to business challenges, and the cultivation of strategic relationships. Visit fmamfg.org for all the details. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today we have Tim Shinbara Chief Strategy Officer of the BlueForge Alliance. We're going to learn a little bit about him and his organization. To begin, Tim, I say this to a lot of people. We must be inviting a lot of interesting people to the podcast.
Yeah.
You got a good resume.
Oh, thanks.
Can you tell us maybe the road that got you to BlueForge Alliance? And then we'll explore what BlueForge Alliance is.
Yeah, even a broken clock, right
Yeah.
twice a day, that's more of me. Life was a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Started out in the Navy, got into Northrop Grumman, doing manufacturing technology development. So I had a portfolio of technologies, things like additive manufacturing, NDI and NDE. We were all in the composite center in El Segundo, so everybody had some composites background. And my whole job there was to get technologies actually deployable to our production floor.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking through these small businesses, which is the vast majority that we talk to. So that time gave me an understanding of like how hard it is to do tech development, and not just the development, really the insertion and adoption. I didn't have those words at that time.
Right.
What time frame was that?
That would have been 2004, 5
Gotcha.
through 12.
Okay.
And then I was picked up, hired into AMT, Association for Manufacturing Technology, producer of IMTS.
Correct. Yeah.
So I was their CTO for 12 years. And that job gave me this purview of business. How does a manufacturing company work, stay alive, stay vital? What are those levers you pull? It really gave me insight into workforce. But also the trades and policies that occur that keep some of the dollars that would have normally gone to innovation elsewhere. And so, I got a deep dive into what happened to the manufacturing, particularly the machine tool industry, and then saw a little bit about what trade and other countries' development did to us here in the manufacturing space in America, but also how we helped and did other things internationally. So that purview was a bit of policy, and that under AMT, I did some time on the Hill. That sounded bad.
Yeah, right.
I spent some great times on the Hill
Right.
as a ASME congressional fellow. And so that Venn diagram really became technology, business, policy, and education, more as an undercurrent education, not just workforce development, education. And then good friends with Rob Gorham and Kylie Wren, and soon to find out other C-suite members of BlueForge Alliance, and we had started talking, and I didn't understand fully what they were going to go do, say in early 2023. I just knew that, hey, us at AMT, we're going to help you out at whatever you need. And then so the end of that year, I got the call of, hey, this thing's happening fast. We need someone that can think about this public-private partnership model. You've been working in a non-for-profit, but making profit so we can reinvest into the mission. Our mission is subs. Can you think about these things for us and come join the team? And that's what brought me in.
Sure.
Yeah. So can you explain what BlueForge Alliance is for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a neutral integrator, 501c3 neutral integrator for the Navy. Our main focus, so the reason we get 501c3 status, is for the submarine industrial base. So we don't put parts on subs. We're not out there making weldments. What we do, though, is come in to convene and integrate all the supply base that needs it, both in clarity and in capabilities. Like, how do we perform our jobs better? How do we integrate with other suppliers that we didn't know about? And really, when you look at some of those attributes from a BlueForge Alliance standpoint, the alliance is the key point. Like, it was really no one's job day to day to go check on all suppliers and let them know about their ecosystem.
Right.
And then how do you get needs of the Navy translated into requirements and build to prints? There was a lot of stress. We call it the stress on the supply chain. And so BlueForge is coming as this neutral integrator for the Navy to help improve really the capability and the capacity of the submarine industrial base.
Sure. And what was the timeline like trying to kind of make that more visible to the general public? Because you guys have done a lot of partnerships with Major League Baseball and, on the same level, FMA.
Yeah, we right now we have Major League Baseball and certainly Boston, CT Suns for the WNBA, NASCAR and RFK Racing is a big one. So November of 2022 is when the mission was understood enough. Kylie, Rob, and Melissa Wren, Kylie's wife, kind of on the back of a napkin in a kitchen, understood and founded BlueForge. So over time, we used most of 2023 in really the way in which we relieved some of that stress in the supply chain was taking some projects and helping to project manage. Sometimes it was making better utilizing the supplier development funds process. So we were doing our best to help share some of this burden and responsibility that were solely on really Electric Boat. And so how do we help Electric Boat? Those are our two primary partners outside the Navy is Electric Boat and Newport News, Huntington Ingalls. So that's how we started to think about it. And at that task level, we started to understand the workforce development issue, which is really what prompted awareness and outreach for such campaigns, as most people know about with buildsubmarines.com, and we build giant campaigns.
Right.
You
see that teal submarine everywhere now.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank our marketing folks.
Yeah, right.
So can you kind of describe the need for subs? I mean, from some of the stuff I've read, the Navy is actually a little bit behind where it would like to be, or at least people running the Pentagon, I guess.
Sure. So there's a strategy that the Navy's gotten behind, and that strategy requires so many Columbia-class subs and Virginia-class subs. Over time, the days delay, and now we're into years delay, the lack of labor hours being expended into these projects have just ballooned into the negative. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do, and the biggest lever is really that industrial base. So we start to look at supplier development. Sometimes a supplier may need, and we have assessments in place. Sometimes we find that supplier needs some business process assistance. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's procurement and government contracting assistance.
Right.
Sometimes it's technology. Right. So we help get in to understand a little bit about where they're sitting, and then we help get those program project dollars that are already appropriated, by the way, at the Navy level, from the Navy, and you would think this is a simple thing, into those business owners to go do the projects they need, but it's not always that simple, unfortunately. So one of the things BlueForge is trying to do is not just raise awareness of the need for the subs, it's kind of change defense acquisition to the extent we can, right? So, the need for the subs highly dependent on the Navy strategy. Getting those boats in the water at the numbers they need, which is, we call it the 1 Columbia and the 2 Virginia, 1+2. We need that to go for the next 10 years as a rate.
No kidding.
And we're not there, right? We're not there.
Wow.
So it's a matter of replacing that fleet that exists right now.
Part of it is, yes, exactly. So this is all public information here on Wikipedia or whatnot. The Ohio's, Columbia's replacing the Ohio, and we're in the middle of a block 4 or 5 of the Virginia. So we got about a third of the planned 60-some of the Virginias going. So this is replacement for the Ohio and modernization, new construction plus sustainment of the Virginia. As we look forward, sustainment eventually will be both boats.
Gotcha.
So is the framework of manufacturing solid enough to support this push, or are we even talking about kind of encouraging more people to get into maybe manufacturing that matches what exactly the Department of Defense, the Navy needs?
It's a yes and. So one of the things we need, I have found, this is one thing that AMT gave tremendous benefit and opportunity for me, that I'll call it hidden capacity. There's a lot of hidden capacity. People who could do defense industrial base, if not submarine industrial base work, that don't. From one of the many reasons I may have even told you about, and whether it's real or not, they don't do it because.
We've heard it. Some people find it not worth the hassle.
It's a lot.
They can run their business serving other customers.
Profit margins are still nice, and they can continue to go. So one of the things is, let's find some of that hidden capacity. Let's improve some of our normal processes, which I don't know what the percentage is. It's got to be more than 60% just there alone to improve current existing processes. But we have a line item from the Navy that says, and actually it's from the Armed Services Committees in this whole appropriations this last month or two, said, Senate Armed Forces Committee, put new companies into our submarine industrial base. They mean capacity and capabilities. So it's both. We know there's a lot we can do with the current. We certainly want to add in new folks that bring new thoughts and other augmenting, whether it's process or technology. Either way, we get capabilities and capacity, which is really what we want in the industrial base.
I know another hurdle for shops, particularly of a smaller size, is actually learning to work with these bigger companies like Electric Boat, Newport News. Have you found success in kind of bringing those people along to kind of meet the expectations of these large manufacturing companies?
We have, and we talk explicitly about this, particularly to the Navy. Part of the convene and connect portion of us as a connector and a neutral integrator is sometimes it's translation.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just access. But getting those smaller and medium companies to understand what the larger OEMs need, or even a higher tier level supplier need, and how to go fulfill it. We have there's a great metric that Mr. Matt Sermon, PO Strategic Subs, Executive Director of the PO of Strategic Subs, says where it's on time in full. So how oftentimes when you start getting below, I don't know what the tier is explicitly, 4 or 5 below, they don't know the mission, they don't know it's a sub, and they certainly don't know what they make as a daily decision impacts in full on time in full delivery down the road. Part of our job is to go inform, if not evangelize, to these smaller and medium companies.
Sure.
And they appreciate it. Most of them had no idea.
Correct. Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's an easy sell, I'd imagine. I mean, who doesn't want to help out?
Generally,
the defense base. It's particularly when it comes to, because that's always the sell for me when I explain what we cover. You know what I mean? Well, these shops, what do they make? Well, actually, they make the parts that help go into this thing.
Right. That's right.
And once you walk a shop floor, you'd be hard pressed not to start pointing stuff out like, oh yeah, that's the thing that I saw a part being made for. It's very it comes together in one's mind when someone discusses the big picture.
Yeah. Exactly.
In talking with these smaller companies, what is the biggest challenge for them to being able to step up?
There's multiple things, and it really depends on the company, as you would probably imagine. Oftentimes we get our workforce, it's getting hard to get everyone to show up on time, full day. I get it. Oftentimes they're not leveraging or exploiting maybe the technology that's currently available, and maybe they haven't had a time to come to an IMTS, or they haven't had a time to go to a regional meetup or a trade show. Oftentimes though, they're so slammed with work. They're doing great work. The time to think about anything else is just not there. So one of the things we're trying to do is come in and I'll call it free consulting. The Navy's saying, listen, we want to fund someone to do something good in this industrial base, and oftentimes just coming in, talking to them. So give me your lunch hour. We're not talking about a whole day. So I'm not even going to talk about wave assessments. This is just stopping in. Tell me your top 3 pain points. If you could hit the easy button, hit staple, what is it you want done? And most of it's business processes.
Often. Do you feel that once those type of things are addressed, that opens capacity for them?
I would. I would say that. So we've got partners who that's their job. So oftentimes when we're putting together a team, whether they're consultants, advisors, or whatnot, when they come in and walk a floor, people think Lean Six Sigma, they're thinking about all this productivity. And oftentimes it's just, did you connect data from here to there so that you can make a better informed? And it says it's easy to say it out loud.
Right, correct.
But who's going to write that, even if it's in Excel? Who's going to write that? I got 9,000 things plus my kid's soccer game, which we highly value, by the way, at BlueForge. Is faith and family and work. So,
and you're helping these shops kind of invest in new technologies too to match what you need.
Yeah, and thankfully this is a head nod back to the Navy. It doesn't have to always be their dollars, right? So we've got non-dilutive grant, however you want to call them. We have project funds. We can call it supplier development funds. So if you're a current SIB supplier and you have an issue, especially on a critical path, and I'd say out of the gate, it's really the critical path ones. So if you had yellows or reds, we're looking at the reds on a scorecard. There are ways to gather that information, put it in a project proposal, and have the Navy approve it and pay for whatever it is to get done for your shop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you were in the Navy, did you recognize anything related to a supply chain?
Heck no, man. No. I don't know that I can put supply chain
What was your
together.
relationship with the equipment you worked with?
I was a radioman. It was all, in fact, we were just switching out from being a banana plug radioman that you might think about World War II stuff into computers and databases. We had merged the 2 jobs in the Navy. So all I knew at that point was I had to figure out this thing called Windows 95 just to date myself for a minute. We had no internet, by the we emails were on a floppy, and floppy was hard at least by that point. It wasn't a true floppy.
Oh, wow.
So my equipment, and I looked at the ship, and we were in the dry docks for a bit. And when you go on deployment, you go pre-ops and all these things, or the build-ups and the work-ups, you see all these contractors on board with names like BAE or whomever, and they're doing all this stuff. I didn't think about any of that stuff, man. I just figured, the ship got here somehow. We're going to go fight it. It's going to be great. Another great day in the Navy.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about the back-end manufacturing process until they're really in it.
Not at all. In fact, it wasn't until probably grad school and I worked at a small tool and die shop.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay. As just something you did? Or
I was in the mechanical engineering technology program at Purdue.
Okay.
So West Lafayette has a lot of Volvo, Caterpillar, you name it. They're all Wabash National. And so many supporting tool and die and small precision shops are there. There was a departmental connection, so I went to go work for one of them, and I just started listening, and I walked the floors, and I started going, oh my goodness, this is not just conveyance and robotic arms. Like there's some pretty interesting stuff happening. They wire EDM. But it was not really until then that I totally understood both the knowledge and the capital that it took to make a thing. Mm-hmm. And then we took one of the most interesting moments. You're triggering some memories. We went down to the Alcoa plant.
Okay.
And they happened to be running, I can't get in trouble for this now, it's been 20-something years, Coke cans.
Okay.
And I'm looking at all of this, the machinery would take up one of these, not whole halls, but a lot of square footage. And it's just, I'll use the terminology stories of conveyance, not belts, but just conveyance contraptions and all this stuff going on at the speed of what seemed like light.
Right.
And I'm looking at all this stuff, and I'm hearing the folks, because we were there for some controls. That was one of the courses we were in at the time. And so the control engineer was explaining PLCs and was explaining vision and quality and all this stuff. He's talking CPK, and I didn't know what in the world that even meant. I thought it was KFC competitor. I didn't know. And so, but it was then that I went, and I know how much a can costs. It's nothing. I'm going, oh my goodness, all of this to go make some fractional of a penny can so that I can have a Coke one day cold.
So isn't that incredible? Man. Like, I mean, when it clicks for you, and I'm sure everybody has a different story like that, where it's connected, and yet we're still talking about making stuff. But the supply chain is just so much. It's kind of
massive.
Yeah, it's massive, but it's kind of in the air. You know what I mean?
It's like ethereal.
Let's go see a supply chain. You know, you're not gonna open the doors. So I mean, to try to kind of hammer home the importance of that, it's a little bit of a challenge. I think
it really is. Especially, and this is, everyone knows this part when you're trying to talk to parents about their kids. But even then, you really, unless you use a word like a submarine, or some defense article du jour that day, there really is no, and I'll say, appreciation for what it takes. Ingenuity and creativeness to do a thing.
Well, this summer I covered a nuts, bolts, and thingamajigs camp that BlueForge partnered with FMA on, and the kids were designing submersibles. And so, like, some of these kids were going into a submarine camp thinking, the parents were like, what does that mean? Are they going to be building a big submarine? But, they're just building these contraptions that are like the size of this coffee cup, but fully remote controlled, get into underwater, and that kind of like ticked a lot of, lists in their head about like what this process is like. And they visited a lot of shops too. And we found that these kids visiting these shops to get an understanding, first to understand like, what's the connection to making these projects in the camp and how it relates to these big buildings that they drive by that they never see. So
and that's just it too, Gareth. The outside of the highest end manufacturing advanced composite center of a Northrop Grumman, a Boeing, a Lockheed, looks the same as an AWS data center sitting in Ashburn, Virginia, out by my neck of the woods.
Right.
It's a box. And they have no idea. They have no idea.
So are you, I'm going to use the word amazed, because I think you kind of describe your early days in the Navy, just kind of like trying to wrestle with a word 95. Are you amazed that kind of the path you took to get to where you are now? It just seems like, and the point I like to bring up is that there's nothing's really linear. And I could say manufacturing, but it's like that in life now. I don't think you can choose a major, a field of interest, or just your first job. There's no telling where you might end up.
No, that's a good point. I think this question was never posed to me earlier, but if someone were to say, would you work for a non-for-profit or a 501c3? It's like, what is that?
Right.
Is that Goodwill? Am I a retailer now? I have no idea. But what's been amazing about it has been at every juncture, at least of my career path, the decisions were much more myopic in what I considered to make it. And I look back and go, there was no way I could have mapped this thing out. I mean, there was no vocabulary, there's no context, but I knew I was really interested in technology in general. In fact, when I started out, I thought I was going to be a double E at NC State.
Okay.
Yeah, just almost for no reason. Then my dad was there, and all these.
Right.
I had no clue. But it was these smaller decisions of learning about networking and databases and what kind of effort it took to get information from A to B with clarity and consistency, and I'm talking Radieman days, to think about that same paradigm and construct in Industry 4.0 applications for a robotic arm, a vision system, and a controller to do something together.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was building out this thing called ITOT, or Industrial Internet.
Right.
Those didn't even exist then.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we didn't even have that at Northrop Grumman. What we called it simulation.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
Called it simulation, but what were we simulating? We were simulating processes on the production floor.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing this the right thing? It was kind of an IE task, if you will,
Yeah.
an industrial engineering task. But we had no great vocabulary for digital twin, digital manufacturing.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing functionally? Well, I'm simulating this stuff. Okay, simulation it is. Move on, next.
I think a lot of people use those acronyms without really understanding what they mean.
Oh, man.
Anyway.
Yeah. Those terms are but they're becoming part of the normal lexicon,
Yeah.
I think.
They really
That's
are.
at the pace in which, manufacturing is moving.
Mm-hmm.
You can easily, and it goes back to becoming a modern supplier to something like the defense base. If you don't do it, it can be awfully intimidating.
Yeah, and I don't want to say pay to play, but there's something where if you're not coming to the game with a certain set of capabilities,
Right.
Yeah.
like this modernization thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
And one of the things we'd love to see the Navy do by the way, we consider this a generational moment.
Yeah.
Sure.
By many definitions. And if we can get the Navy to understand small improvements and advancements in places that they may not have thought of in our industrial base, and then let that proliferate, because people in those localities do it for themselves every day.
Right.
They're not dependent on a grant check. They're not depending on. Use those dollars that way, and we're gonna. The amazement back to that word on this case is how many people really know a lot more in their head than they think they know.
Right.
Especially with relation to data.
How did they access that? Are you talking about simplification and supply chain relations?
Sometimes
More.
I would say, I'd say we start there because you got to build trust.
Right.
I mean, it's been a really hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
Getting any industry's culture to shift or even improve is tough. But
Yeah.
it starts there. But anyway, let's say we get past that. It's generally just thinking, how do you buy stuff today on Amazon?
Right.
Or how do you, get songs to your wife or your kids through Spotify?
Yeah.
How do you, and people will go, oh, well, you do this and this. It's not that different.
So we've seen the emergence of shops who deal with that digital front person, if you will, that if their customers can't order on their own custom-made order interface, they don't want to do business with them. And it's their choice. And maybe they change that if they really want to scale to a bigger size. But people are coming of age and figuring out what's easier for them and how automation allows them to maintain their overhead while still bringing in more business, and trying to match that up with. And it's not just at the Department of Defense. I mean, we have people in our universe who refuse to do business with certain multinationals just because it's a headache. And what they learned after the Great Recession was diversification's king, and you're not going to be 25% of my business. It's just simply not going to be it. So in this evolution, I think you might have willing ears. It's just a matter of kind of playing matchmaker, if you will.
And there is a bit of timeliness, enough built up, I'll call it demand from the COVID period, meeting up with enough supply, people who think about these things but didn't apply it, say, to industrials. And the Navy making a clearer, at least, we'd like it to be even clearer, but at least a clearer demand signal that we're here to buy these things, and these are all these things are kind of happening at once.
Yeah.
And one of the things that BlueForge has realized, and this goes back to Rob Gorm in his days as executive director of America Makes, so as a public-private partnership, part of the Manufacturing USA Institutes, my time at AMT and other public-private partners, where keeping the cadence on the mission is critical. And then I call it the messy middle.
Yeah.
we talked to many suppliers or could be suppliers who say, I can do that fill in the blank process all day long. In fact, I do it. All I want is a build to print, requirement sheet, and a delivery date.
Yeah.
All this other stuff, and I know why FAR is there, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. I know why the FAR is there, FARs, but can BlueForge help remove that messy middle so people just go, I just want to do what I do well.
Yeah.
Right? And digitalization and digital manufacturing tools have a lot to do with getting rid of that messy middle.
Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. What are some stated goals for BlueForge? Are there actual published quantifiable goals that the organization hopes to?
So permit me to plug our enterprise management framework.
There you go.
EMF. One of the biggest needs we heard was whenever we make, this is the Navy, whenever we make an investment, we always have to defend it to Congress.
Right.
So one of the things we started to do is data integration. And with that data integration, we were doing two major things, and I'll get to the metrics in a moment. The first thing was, hey, Congress, your investment through appropriations moved the needle, and we can quantify that needle. Great. Then a little more fidelity was at the Navy. Hey, Navy, if you pull levers A through E by this much, you will get this result every time. So it allowed Congress to know that under the fiscal kind of act responsibility roles, the dollars are being invested properly through appropriations. The Navy then was able to look at what we thought was the problem was, and the magnitude is or is not as expected. So this enterprise management framework is the first time we've been able to collect all this disparate data, and it's stuff like wave assessment data, but it's also supplier repository data, it's project data, it's program related, program management, program manager related, so you can cut and slice like you would. So again, take your digital head and you do this all day long and everything. Yes, let's do it here. So having that, and then what we realized is I'll use the language of appropriations lines of effort. So we have 5 lines of effort. It's workforce development 1, supplier development 2, shipyard infrastructure 3, technology 4, and what we call, strategic outsourcing is 4. But strategic outsourcing, by the way, what hours that are sitting in Electric Boat or Newport News could be, not willy-nilly, but strategically placed into the industrial base.
Yeah.
So that all the must-do hours that can only be done in the shipyards are fully focused on the shipyards. Mm-hmm. And then technology, but not development. We used to call it development, but it's about advanced manufacturing and implementation. Mm-hmm. So the EMF can take those lines of effort and the projects that fill up those containers of lines of effort and say what needle was moved by what direction, and is it sufficient or not? So for example, I think it was June, July-ish, sometime over the summer, we hit on buildsubmarines.com, 1 million applications submitted.
Oh, wow.
And if you know, back in the day, they said, by the way, the submarine industrial base, especially at the EB Newport News level, we're going to need about 100,000 additional workers in 10 years, so 10,000 a year-ish. That number's creeped up a little bit. Right. But we had, by the end of this fiscal year, for the government fiscal year coming up, I think it was like well over 10,000. I think it was 13,000. Not applications, hires.
Wow.
Into the submarine industrial space, particularly at those EB and Newport News levels. So we're seeing the 1 million applications being clicked, so Build Submarines outreach working well. We're seeing people being hired, so that whole LOE called workforce is really doing well. We removed, I think, just on some additive manufactured part projects, like 238 days of delay reduced and removed from supply chain delays.
Wow.
And we've had, I think it was 11 percentage points increase on productivity, like parts being delivered, again, on time in full. There's like 5 or 6 metrics that the EMF allows us to go and publish and show. And for us, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
But I mean, to see the numbers actually track to a 10-year goal at rate feels really good, Yeah,
it's funny to say you're just getting started, but Build Submarines has training facilities in all 50 states now too. What's the strategy behind choosing which colleges to work with or community programs to work with?
So a couple things go into this recipe. Yeah. One is, again, we're not necessarily trying to start grassroots green field. Show us that you have a pipeline and a process, and you've got support locally, right? It's really hard to get one participant to do, but if you've got 2 or 3 in there, so we're looking for that. Certainly, we have some direction, at least priorities, on the type of workforce, whether it's accreditation or certification. So, for example, welders, pipe fitters, such a like that, precision machinist, all these things. So we want to see, are you doing the content that we care about and need? And then at the end of that part, it's people who are willing to engage. I mean, the BlueForge Alliance, the alliance part is what we're really going to start exploiting. I'll use that word, because it can't just be BlueForge. There was no plan for BlueForge to come in and have 20,000 people to solve a problem like this. It's just scale. It's 200 people.
Yeah.
And then a whole host of solid partners.
Right.
Teammates on projects, alliance partners who maybe don't even get paid on a project, but we're helping them do their job daily. So that's kind of how it goes into it. And we certainly don't want to be exclusive. That's the last thing we want to do on buildsubmarines.com. We just want to make sure there's certain criteria that are being met.
Yeah, as you're building out these training facilities, what's the biggest need that you're seeing at, like, are you looking at like a workforce level? Or are you looking at like an engineering level?
I would say right now it's both, but right now it's heavily towards technicians, welders, operators, CNC. Some of the robotics, additive has pretty good priority right now too. Those things for sure. The engineering is going to come along. In personal opinion, I don't know what BlueForge's official stance would be. I don't think we have an engineering problem in talent necessarily. We certainly do in the other space, by quantity and the engagement.
Yeah.
So my mind goes to this Uber model, like who's sitting at home that could do a couple things, maybe from their laptop, advising or counseling a younger person coming up.
Yeah.
And they flip on their manufacturing Uber button and give some real-time advice. But there's a lot of that's happening. So I think that talent in that area, skilled trades still could have some acceleration.
I think that you mentioned kind of a generational kind of impact, and I think the timing of it seems to be pretty good. We're seeing people of a younger persuasion, young people. They're
What's
not
the threshold on that age, Dan?
Anybody under 50 nowadays.
Yeah, right.
But they don't have the interest in accruing college debt. They like the idea of like not sitting behind a desk all day, and those things, both can easily be met, like in manufacturing. So, do you feel like you're seeing that a more receptive audience?
In spades. In fact, I'd say there's a third attribute that I picked up. People are on mission in life.
Yeah.
It's not about a portfolio and a profit and a nest egg. It's like I want enough, but I want to do something good.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable the kind of talent that come to us unsolicited.
Yeah.
And the only thing they say is, "I'm here to help." Like, I love your mission. Here to help. Yeah. We'll work for food. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love it. We'll take it.
That's awesome. I'm gonna ask this: favorite submarine movie?
Oh man.
Nice.
Oh man!
I'm only bringing this up because James Earl Jones, as we take this, passed away.
That's true.
I saw a clip of him and Alec Baldwin from Hunt for Red October.
It is.
Having this conversation today made me want to ask that.
It is Hunt for Red October, but it's for probably an unknown reason. So, me personally, I'm a very associative guy. I could have a great meal, watch a pretty poor movie.
Yeah.
It's a good thing in my head. I'll watch that movie 1,000 times.
Right.
But Hunt for Red October. And I won't do my English Scottish Sean Connery accent at all.
Scottish Ukrainian?
Yeah, we were talking about that before we started recording. We're all going to bust out a British accent. Michael Caine.
But one ping only. Like that does it for the whole movie for me. I'll watch it every day just to get to that one line, and I'm good for the day.
I love Scott Glenn in that movie because he's every stressed out like manager ever. Like he's
all embodied in one actor.
Yeah, like not knowing what to do and the deadline's coming. He's just like that.
I realize I haven't watched a lot of submarine-centric movies.
There's more than you think.
Yeah, even the bad ones tend to be pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Like there's I shouldn't say bad. Like the two Hunt for Red October. That I've never seen Run Silent, Run Deep.
Oh,
that's supposed to be really good.
Das Boot. Yeah, Das Boot's classic.
Well, yeah.
That's classic.
So if you ever get to go to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, they have, I don't know if it's the only one, but it's during World War II, U.S. took possession of a German U-boat.
Oh, man.
And they had
have
that
it there?
in the confines. So no one gets the opportunity to just go on a submarine. But the confines in which these people had to live, and you look around, it's not like what you see on movies today. There's wood finishing in it. It is German, but it's like tiny.
Yeah.
And it just, man, you get a little bit,
Not for the faint of heart, man.
no, submarines are not. So once again, this whole feeding into something that's so important for U.S. defense and really, I mean, you might argue the backbone of U.S. defense nowadays.
Yeah.
And the changing need for those newer and more modern tools of defense. It's a hopefully there comes a day when we don't need it, but as it stands now, it's very much a part of things. And to be able to rely on our manufacturing base to kind of step up and meet that goals, hopefully we're on that path.
Yeah. I mean, you hit something that even from my background, I realized certainly the spotlight is on submarines, as well it should be.
Yeah.
In my mind, anything that really injects energy and productivity back into our industrial base for the impacts to GDP, to careers and families and ball games we all just talked about earlier, I'll do that in spades every day.
Yeah.
So part of me says it happens to be subs. Part of me says because it's subs.
Yeah.
It's a back to your timing.
No, yeah, it's from the standpoint of just good for U.S. economy, good for good paying jobs. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons to want this effort to succeed. We had a guest yesterday who had in one of his previous jobs worked as a tech school instructor, and his whole thing was finding what they're interested in. So that's how we were talking about knives earlier. He connected with one kid that liked to manufacture these butterfly knives. And he would practice, it was like a outlet for him, like a hobby. So what is he doing now? He's making these things, and he's got a business, an online business.
There you go.
So in a way, there's also this. Not only are you learning to make things, but in terms of maybe you happen to be on one of those submarines. Just the ability to kind of go out and what's the old saying about the Navy? Go out and see the world. I think that was the tagline from 20. All right, I'll say it about 30 years ago. Manufacturing provides so many different opportunities for people who are interested in it. It's just in the interests. You can find that interest. It may not happen overnight, but you can work your way there.
Well, this is why we've loved over time, and now it's 20 years, where these maker spaces and maker fairs, the additive world, even for the extrusion, just small polymer, not doing a lot with it, but I'm building something. You got to think through a process to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And certainly with First Robotics and other Legos, I mean, all these things, I think what happened, at least maybe in our generation, was we dabbled in it, but there wasn't a next step to it all.
Right.
Hopefully now we're uncovering those next steps.
With your involvement, even kind of when you were before you got the AMT gig and what you're currently doing, the importance of additive manufacturing to all the branches of the armed forces, you get that. I mean, that's like instant supply chain. If you need something, you can make it. How widespread is the use of that technology?
Nowhere near where it needs to be. Qualification, certification.
Okay.
Biggest restrictors.
Okay.
And
because obviously it has to stand up to a certain level, right?
And even in the commercial space, FAA, I'm glad those things are in place when we're flying.
Right.
But there has to be another way that we as a team, and I mean the private industry and the government regulating side of that, we have to come to a space where we understand what's really necessary, even exploiting technology to do quals and certs. We're getting away a little bit from everything having to be destructively broken, right, with strain gauges and all this stuff.
Right.
But there's got to be some way we can do more with simulation and AI and ML, not to throw out more buzzwords.
Yeah.
Statistically, it makes a lot of sense for those things to be applied. But
just like you're describing, though, I mean, you're able to get to an answer much more quickly in a virtual environment than you are by lining up one more project, as you described, to break and
no doubt. And I'm going to talk to plug something at IMTS.
Okay.
I'm going to talk with Barbara Humpton later today, and what Siemens is doing to simulate factory build-outs.
Oh, wow.
Not just operating, but building it out so that you get it right the first time. Sounds like a production first article inspection to me.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, there's a lot of these things that just, who's going to take the time to write it on paper, do the research to say it's sufficient,
Right.
walk the government through what this means, give some experiential data that show, right? I think that's where also a neutral convener and integrator like a BlueForge Alliance really makes a whole lot of sense.
Wow.
Because it's not anyone's necessarily day job to do it.
Seems like the more we talk, the more we find opportunity for you.
I don't know what you guys are doing after this podcast. We got a few projects.
That's awesome. And, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, guys, this has been great.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
It's and find out more information about BlueForge Alliance. They can go to
BlueForge, BlueForgeAlliance.us.
Okay.
Or just attend a Major League Baseball game.
Or just send or CT
Yeah.
Suns event or a NASCAR event.
Sure.
Look for the teal submarine. Is that what we,
Yes,
what we
yeah.
said? All right. Well, thanks so much, Tim.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, send them our way at podcast@fmamfg.org. Be sure to rate, review, recommend this podcast.
Or roast.
Or roast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gareth. Yeah, let us know how Gareth did today.
Yeah.
So until next time, thank you and goodbye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Culpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.